Welcome to Anonymousaurus Podcast. I'm your main host, 0215. Today we have a mental health podcast brought to you by Zero. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Like I said, I don't really deal with depression. It's more of like little stumps that I deal with, because I don't know. The only time I ever felt like major depression was, well, let me go back a little bit, because I'll have to talk about a little bit about my childhood before I get further on that. I wouldn't say I had a terrible childhood by any means. I never did whatsoever. But I did grow up in a family that was very abusive, both verbally and physically. So like I wouldn't say like every single day I would see it, but I have seen, like, you know, my parents yell at each other. Like, they would, if they're yelling at each other, they would make sure to go to the other room. But I did hear, like, you know, slapping, punching.
Oh, damn.
And, like, things breaking and stuff, too. Like I said, I didn't grow up in a terrible childhood whatsoever because of the fact that, you know, they were trying to hide that stuff. Because I didn't get to see it as much. Because most of the time, either someone was there and they would be like, hey, walk with me, let's go outside or something. Because they would try to hide
get you away.
Yeah, exactly. Just hide that away from me. And the main thing was, I think I was like, 8, 9 years old. So that's when they got divorced. Cheating, of course, is wrong. Both of them have actually cheated on each other. But
jeez.
Yeah, but I will back up on my mom with this one, though. My mom, the reason why she did it was because of the fact that she was really, I think it's because she was scared, because if she would have told, like, hey, I'm done, I think my dad would have done something crazy. I call him, I won't say the last name or anything, but it's just because I have no connection with him, because that's a whole different story, too, that I'll tell you a little bit later. But
okay.
The problem with me was that I was manipulated by him because of the fact that, like, he wanted to win me because my mom had custody. He was upset because all he ever complained about was paying child support. I never thought of it that way until I got older, because he was trying to win me, because he would buy things for me. He bought like a GameCube, Game Boy Advance for me. He would do whatever it takes to try to win me over, because of the fact that, you know, I was the only person other than the fact that my stepmom, you know, when he met her and all that stuff, but he was trying to win me over that way, because I think he wanted to try to get custody of me so he doesn't pay child support anymore. But fast forward a little bit further, I was 16 years old. So, like, I grew up, you know, constantly, like, giving my mom crap, saying that I fucking hate you. You know, I want to live with my dad. I want to live with him. I don't want to see you anymore. And that's because that, you know, I was getting manipulated because of the fact of him trying to win me over, because I wanted to have a father figure. Like, I was young. I was foolish. I didn't know any better. And the biggest thing was I tried to grow an attachment with my biological dad. And the problem was, when I was 16, I realized, I'm like, holy shit, like, so no wonder why my mom and I keep getting into arguments and stuff, because what clicked was the fact that my biological, so she was more of the fact of, when I got older, he kind of ignored me more. He was focusing on other things, like his friends. He was focused, like, he lost a bunch of friends, but mainly his friends were mainly friends with, like, his stepmom. Like, any friends that he had from before with my mom was like, no, we're done. Like, you're pathetic. We always would go to Cleveland around Eastlake every single time to see my stepmom's family, like either her parents, either her sister, brother-in-law, and everything, which was fun because of the fact that I did have fun, because I loved hanging out with my cousins. The biggest thing was that really hurt me the most was when I turned 18, a month before, I told like, hey, this is what's going on. If it's inside, you just need a ticket. If you don't have a ticket, just ask for a ticket. They're free. You don't have to pay anything. He's like, okay. I even told him like 2 weeks from before, a week from before, even a day before. And I'm like, hey, are you going to make it? He says, yes, I will. I promise. Next day comes. He wasn't there. I was so pissed off because I'm like, what kind of fucking father would do such a thing? I still hold it against him because of the fact that, like, he makes excuses every time. So he would say that, oh, well, you didn't tell me, even though I told him. And my mom was sitting next to me, knowing the conversation, and she even backed me up for that too. Like, I started not getting along with my stepmom because she's holding him back and everything, because I feel like I don't have a dad anymore. But now I know that my stepdad is more of a dad than anything else. That's why I call him dad, and I love him very much. The point was, the reason why I got super depressed was mainly because of the fact that, my father had nothing to do with, my biological dad had nothing to really do with me anymore. I was in a tough state because of the fact that, I didn't have a car. Like, this is the only depression I really felt of, like, wanting to kill myself, because, like, I didn't have a car. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to, I literally was like, I just want to be at home around nobody. Like, no one was home. And I was like, I don't want to deal with this shit. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with my life. I don't know. And then, like, all my friends were like, hey, you want to hang out? And I ignored them, and I didn't know what to do. I'm like, I was like, this fucking sucks. And it was to the point where I'm just like, I have no fucking girlfriend and everything. Like, I think that was like the lowest of the low I ever felt, because I didn't know what to do. I was like, there were so many things that were just like, I was overthinking, which I'll admit, I overthink a lot because I think that's when my anxiety kicks in. But this was by far the worst. I was like, well, I feel like no one fucking cares about me, so why the fuck should I live? And I'm like, well, you know what? I should just kill myself. And then I'm like, but I don't want to get up. I'm like, I don't want to do nothing. I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do?
Have you talked to any kind of therapist or psychologist or a psychiatrist at all?
I did, yeah. I did finally get up. I grabbed a knife. This was when I was at my mom's. And I've never told her about this either, because I didn't want her to freak her out or anything. But there was a point where I had, like, the knife, like, right. I was going to, like, point at my stomach. I was like, no, I could point at my head and everything.
You gotta commit seppuku.
Yeah, I was like, I'm going to do something. And then I was like, you know what? The heart. Just put it right there. And then when I was about to push, what clicked at the moment was, so my sister and I are 10 years apart. Uh-huh. And then that's what clicked. I was like, holy shit. I'm like, if I kill myself, my sister is going to see me on the floor with blood everywhere, just fucking, like, laying down. I was like, and I dropped it. I was like, I don't want to do this shit.
Yeah.
And then
that's usually what happens.
Yeah, and I clicked, and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. When I was living with my grandma for a little bit, I did take some counseling.
So what did they say during the counseling? Yeah.
They didn't really diagnose me with anything, which is the odd part. Like, I didn't get to go to counseling as much.
That was just therapy, like a therapist?
I'm sorry, not counseling. It was more of a therapist.
Yeah, they're still considered counselors, I believe.
Yeah, but, like, they didn't diagnose me with anything. The only thing I just talked about was, I did tell them about that, and they asked me, did you tell your mom? And I was like, no. And then what they told me was, like, I think you should tell that about your mom. And I was like, I know, I'm scared because I don't want her to, freak out about that situation. I know it's the past, but I still haven't talked to her about it, though.
Here's something interesting about therapists and counselors and stuff. A lot of them don't have the ability to diagnose with anything. They can recommend places to go for that kind of stuff. But the only place that you can do is, I recommend psychiatrists and psychologists, because they diagnose you with that stuff. You tell them their job is to diagnose you. Therapists are to walk you through something. They tell you, hey, it would be a good idea to do this. It would be, it'd be in your best benefit to do this. And those are usually the best ways to cope with stuff. But psychologists and psychiatrists basically try to understand you and figure out what's going on with you. Psychiatrists diagnose you and give you the medicine. So, I think that you should probably see either one of those or both of them, if possible, because I'll bet you anything they'll probably give you a better idea of what you should do. Because I'm not saying that your life sucks right now, but it's good to nip it in the butt and try to get that stuff taken care of, because you don't want to be, somewhere 5-10 years down the road where you could do something, you could have done something that could have improved your situation a lot better. Because me, whenever I fucking lost 2 jobs, really, really good jobs, and I could have prevented that from actually going and doing that stuff. I think you did the right thing of going to at least a therapist, because therapists, since they walk you through that stuff, they're really good for your mind. Anyway, sorry I cut you off again. Go ahead and continue.
No, I totally get it. No, I do plan on going back to counseling though, because lately I've been just more stressed about like jobs and stuff like that, and that's really about it though. No, the main thing is that like after dealing with that, I've never really I never really felt any other type of depression other than that. Like there's only been a few times where I've been like down the dumps here and there, but I jump over it or go through it, which I'm just like I think that's the only depression I really felt.
I have a question for you.
What's that?
So have you, whenever you get into relationships, do you ever fear that they're going to leave you?
For a while I did.
Okay.
And
tell me about that.
So the first time, let's see. I think
let's say like at the very beginning of who are you with now?
I'm with my wife.
So when you first met her, how did that go?
It was unbelievable. One of the best moments I ever had in my life. Okay. And
when she didn't, let's say when she didn't message you for like a couple of hours, what would go through your head?
Work.
Okay. Yeah. I was gonna say, what about before that? Any relationships before that?
I think the only time I would probably say that I would worry. The only thing is I never really met her, but we talked. We used to like text all the time, and there was this girl that I used to chat with all the time, and like she was very pretty and everything too, but. The problem was I didn't have a car. I think that's where I started feeling like, oh, she's gonna dump me because of the fact that I don't have a car and everything too.
I think that communication in that one.
I didn't really feel the best connection at the same time, but I think it wasn't lust or anything, but it was more of like, I want to give this a shot, but it seems like it's heading over nowhere. But like, still in my head, I'm just like, I feel comfortable. I really want to like make this work and everything. I don't want her to leave. But the problem is like, I didn't get a car until I was like 23, 24. It's just because of the fact that I wasn't responsible with my money and everything too. But yeah. At the same time, right? Sometimes no, I get it. And I think the biggest thing is that with her, like, I only got to meet her one time, and I think like I was still pretty nervous, but she was she was nice and everything too, very sweet. But I'm like, oh, this is gonna work out and everything too. And then it goes back to my head where I'm just like, no, it might not. I don't want to lose her and everything, but. So my first girlfriend I ever had in high school, the problem is I didn't do great with long distance relationships back then because I didn't want to really, I mean, it was only like a 45-minute drive away, but I didn't have a car back then. So to me, it was still long distance, but at the same time, I didn't know what to really do because I'm like, shit, man, like I'm tired of just texting. I want to like be there with her, but but my mom was talking to me and she made a good point here too. She's like, really, you didn't really probably feel the best connection though if all you did was just text and stuff. I was like, yeah, but you still want to do something to like, to be with that person. But the problem was, so I didn't want to really stick with a long distance relationship. So I was like, well, it's not going to work out. And I told her, I was like, I don't know if this is going to work out. And she's like, I was about to say the same thing. Like, she's like, I don't really have any interest with you anymore. And I'm like, fuck, man. I'm like, that's kind of fucked up. Yeah. But I was going to mess her like, well, I want to try to make it work out. But after she said that, I was like, well, that's fucking dumb. I did go back out with with my first girlfriend, which that was a big mistake because she's, but I don't want to say she's crazy. It's just, the problem was like, my issue with me was I didn't know really what love was because I couldn't really find myself. And I think I was like rushing things too quickly. So my first girlfriend, like, she wanted to have kids. I'm like, well, I'm not ready for kids yet. Like, I don't want to rush things out and stuff. Like, she wanted to have sex. She wanted to, make out and everything. And I was like, I'm trying to, take my time. And I'm like, well, I don't want to take too much of a time. I think what really helped me get better at my life was moving to Florida kind of helped me out, because one of the best people I ever met, a guy named me, such a cool fucking dude. So he was my manager at McDonald's, even though I wanted to get the hell out of that job and make more money. But at the same time, I was like, dude, this guy is awesome. Like, every time I hang out with friends, I always feel so much better every time. But like, nowadays, I feel more of, I know I'm kind of jumping like everywhere, but nowadays, like, even with COVID, it sounds weird to say, but I feel like I'm an extrovert, but I've been feeling more of an introvert because of the fact that all I ever do is just want to play games. That's all I ever really want to do. But at the same time, I think what really hurt me the most, though, going back to like the girlfriend situation. So there was this girl I really, really loved to death before being with. So like, more doesn't like when because I talked to her about it from before. I talked at one point, and she was like, no, I don't want to talk about it, which I get. It's just because we were talking about our like past girlfriend, boyfriend, love lives. Yeah. Exactly. Like, I would tell her, like, the one person I actually really did care about before I met her was this girl named I won't say her last name. There was actually two that I liked. The first one was when I was still living in Worcester. And she said, so apparently she had a crush on me. There was this girl named that was like, oh, this girl like really likes you. Cause like so there was a birthday party that I went to. It was really fun. Hung out with some friends and everything. Well, apparently had a crush on me, which I was like, oh shit. I'm like, that's awesome. And then I was like, I have a crush on her too. We went on a date, hung out and everything. And it was a good time. We kind of rushed a little bit though, because I've done some stupid shit, but I don't fully regret every single thing that I've done. I did have sex with her at at one of my friends' place. Mm-hmm. So that was and he wasn't home, but his parents were home, and I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, I'm trying to like hide this shit without like getting caught and stuff, because I'm like really in the mood. And yeah. Like comes down, like he comes back from work, comes downstairs and stuff. So like, we still had our clothes on, but like, I was like, oh, am I? She was like to the point where she was like, oh, well, let's, hey, I'm going to go home and everything. And, can you walk me outside? I'm like, oh, yeah. So I walked her outside, and then we just fucked in her car. I was like, we got to finish it off or something. Fast forward a little bit. So like I said, I still didn't have a car. What really hurt me a lot was like, I had second thoughts, because my friend Haley saying that was like with one of her friends. Apparently was like, oh, she might be cheating on you and everything, and then it goes back to where I'm like, no, that's not the case. And then I keep second guessing, like, this is me overthinking. Yeah. And I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, oh my God, like, what if she is? And like, I never talked to her about it whatsoever, because of the fact that I didn't want to feel like I didn't want to ruin the relationship.
You felt like it was going to ruin the relationship. In my opinion, if it did, then it's for the better. Because, sure. Another thing is the reason why I asked you those questions about feeling like they're going to leave you and stuff like that, and abandonment issues, is because that really correlates to some of the things that you experienced. And I'm no psychologist or anything like that. I've no degree in any kind of mental health or anything like that. But I've done my fair share of research, and I know that like whenever that kind of stuff happens, whenever you're in childhood, anything below 16 years old, considered a traumatic experience. And if it happened repetitively, then that can cause some kind of psychological damage. that's why I kind of asked about the abandonment issues. But I mean, there could be some other things that go on in there that can be a factor in it. You were talking about overthinking. What are some of the things that you overthink?
So sometimes if I get into like a conversation or if we get into an argument, there are times where the problem with me is I'll overthink because so that's kind of when my anxiety kicks in, because if I'm overthinking, like I'm not overthinking, like I know she would never cheat on me. I never thought of that for any second. She never felt the same way. The only time I
get the feeling that she could possibly leave you.
No, actually, no.
Okay.
I've never felt that way whatsoever.
Okay.
I even told her this too, was like, because she did ask me the same question too. And this is what I told her too. I was like, honestly, like if you ever left me, then it is what it is. I'm not, I would be sad about it and everything too. But at the same time, it is what it is. Now, I'm not saying I want her to.
What are some of the things that you overthink?
I don't like confrontation because of the fact that I grew up in that situation. So that's,
So you get worried about it. You get like anxious, and you don't want to confront somebody because you're worried that something's going to happen. Okay, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
All right.
It's to the point where like, so there are times where if I get into an argument with her, I shut down because of the fact that I don't want to say anything bad to make her like hurt or anything. It's to the point where like if we get into an argument so I won't say anything. I'll keep my mouth shut and then I'll find something. So what I do is I'll find something so for kind of example, like I don't want to say it's like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard situation. We've never done with that whatsoever, but
before you continue, since you brought that up, I have to say something. So Amber Heard was diagnosed with histrionic personality disorder, which means you can't trust anything she says. Literally everything she says is well over exaggerated, and a lot of it is delusional and made up. She thinks it happened, but it didn't. Like in her head, she actually believes that a lot of the stuff that she said actually did happen. So it sucks having that kind of mental disorder for many different reasons. First of all, nobody can trust you, and second, everything you experience to you is real. And which leads me to another thing is it's really good she got diagnosed with those things, and hopefully she continues to learn from it and develop from that, because the first step is recognizing that you have that issue. Most people don't even know they have issues. They just think it's normal because that's what they've experienced for most of their life. Like, usually if you're part of an abusive household, and again, I'm not trying to point anything out, but like usually you're the complete opposite. So you'll be a lot more timid, shy, worried, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's more for me there then too, because like I said before, I'm usually because that kind of goes to the point where I kind of shut down a little bit because I want to think before I say anything. But then there are times where like I'll overthink and be like, oh crap, I don't want to like blurt out anything whatsoever. Because there are times where like I'll blurt something out and then it makes her upset, and then she has to go walk to another room or something, and I'm just like shit. So that's why I've been trying to work on it to where I don't shut down, but I have to like not say anything just to think before I say. But at the same time, like more me to say something, she's like, hey, what's on your mind? And what I need to just say, hey, I just need some time to think a little bit before I say anything. But
there's nothing wrong with her. It's just that there's a lot of thoughts that go through your head. You have racing thoughts. You're thinking about a lot of things. There's a lot on your plate. So she just needs to understand that. And once she does, then everything's cool. Yeah,
and we haven't been in an argument in a very long time because we talked about that as well. So because we're hoping. The biggest thing that I like about this is what makes our relationship work so well is the nice thing is that we communicate constantly, and that's what makes a relationship so much better is when you communicate, especially the fact that you can trust one another, and it's just one of the biggest things that makes me really happy about like our relationship. That's why I feel strong with our relationship, because I finally know what love is. I finally know how to take care of myself, and she can, and because we trust with one another too.
That's
now,
good.
Back to the Amber Heard thing. I don't know. Did you watch the documentary on Netflix?
I didn't. I think my mom was watching it, and I saw a little bit of it, and it looks really interesting. I better watch it.
It definitely is. So another thing that she was diagnosed is she's bipolar as well. And at first I was
BPD as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, correct.
So she's got it all, man. She's got problems.
Now I will say this: I know, and I am a very big Johnny Depp fan. Now I'm not like a Johnny Depp fan.
Yeah.
I'm not like my wife is more of a, like, I swear to God, she has a fucking Johnny Depp poster hung above us when we're sleeping. Like I'm like okay, cool, I guess, but I love Johnny Depp, but like not that much. But like I kind of feel bad for Amber Heard, mainly because of the fact of all the things that like she's dealing with and stuff too. Now, justify the fact that, of like what she did to Johnny, but at the same time, like that kind of goes back to the mental health situation, because the fact of, I don't know what her childhood is. Like Johnny Depp is open about his childhood. The fact that he's open to talk about like, him, being an alcoholic and drug abuse and everything. So like that's a step forward.
Yeah.
While I feel like Amber Heard's kind of taken like one step forward, two steps back though. And I think that's the biggest thing that makes me understand, like, okay, well, hopefully she can cope with it and then find a way to be like, okay, because I can understand why fans are upset, because like, saying that, she was like abused and everything too. And she's like, I want to be the face of it and everything. However, I don't know.
It's a mess. I've dealt with a lot of BPD and stuff in many aspects, and I can tell you that that's one thing that you don't want to mess with. Not necessarily to be friends with or anything like that, but there's a possibility that I could have BPD too, more of the internal BPD. So that means like it's quiet BPD, which means I focus it all on the inside. So it's a lot harder for people to understand from the outside. They can't see it as much. So then whenever I go into things like mania and stuff like that and depression and all that, once I get those symptoms, once I go through a cycle, it releases. So it's like that's the BPD from within me that releases. Now, I'm not saying that I do have BPD, and there's a possibility I don't, because I have dated somebody with BPD and it's insane. She's external, and those feelings are real. Like they're real. When they get angry, they get way furious. They go beyond the bounds.
Is it like a form of bipolar?
No, it's very different. But so like somebody that doesn't know what the difference is between BPD and bipolar is it looks very similar. The only difference is BPD happens all the time. So imagine you're in that cycle, only it's uncontrolled and it's spontaneous within minutes. Bipolar, it can be minutes, but it's mostly like hours and days. Like if I go through a depression phase in a cycle, then I get really depressed. Once I get out of that depressed phase after a couple of days, all of a sudden I go right back to whatever I felt last before the depression. And then it goes back down to depression. And then it comes back up a couple of days later to whatever I felt before. And then it goes into mania. So basically what BPD is they have triggers. So, and they have black and white. That's called splitting. So basically you could be on the white side and then you could be on the black side for them. So what that means is, like, let's say you're like an angel 1 minute. You're the best thing in the world. And then all of a sudden you do something that makes them angry. And if you do that, one thing that makes them angry, you go to the black side. Now you're the worst person in the world. And this is all triggers, and they can last for a long time. And the longer you stay in those areas, the more grudges they hold against you. What's really insane about it is you would not believe the intense emotion that they feel. On top of that, with histrionic personality disorder. Okay, so BPD is borderline personality disorder. It's when there's something wrong with your personality. You express different personalities depending on what your mood is. Like you'll be like the devil, or you'll be like an angel, or you'll be the saddest thing in the world. You'll be the most depressed thing within minutes. In one day, you can experience every single emotion under the sun. It's just insane how it works, and it's a rare disorder. But like, I feel for those that have it, and being diagnosed also with histrionic is insane. Like those two together, and they say that people with BPD have more than one disorder. So that means that they also experience, usually bipolar is another one that they usually get diagnosed with. Like I said, when they go through that cycle, now they're even more insane. There's just all of those three things alone, not to mention she probably has other underlying conditions that we don't even know about, and she probably doesn't even know about. But they say somebody with BPD, if they do not seek treatment, they won't get better. And here's the saddest thing. BPD is its own worst enemy, meaning the only possible way that they can possibly get any better is if they have a neutral relationship with somebody that reassures a lot, and it's a lot of work. The reassures a lot, and etc. So basically, they have to have that neutral. Whenever the person's really happy with BPD, that person has to maintain the role of neutrality. They can't go up with that person. They have to stay right in the middle. So then that person doesn't get too excited. Because if you excite them too much, you go to the white side. Once they get angry at you, you go way down in the dark side, the black side. But if you stay neutral, they go up, and then when they get angry at you, they're not as bad when they go down. Two people with bad personalities and bad, symptoms and whatnot, it's especially with somebody with BPD, is just mixture of chaos and destruction, and it's gonna be bad. So I feel bad for her. There's only two things that can fix that. Is from what I've researched, is taking steps and trying to make sure that you're fine, but then a stable relationship is the best, because that's what they lack, is stability. Because
that's interesting. I never knew anything about that whatsoever. There's a lot of things that I've learned about like mental health still. Like I'm still
it's never ending.
No, for sure. No, so the one thing for sure is that like I don't have hatred towards Amber Heard whatsoever, but like I said, I do worry about the fact that she has mental health issues and stuff too, that hopefully she can understand and be like, okay, I need to find a way to cope with this and everything. But at the same time, like even I think the biggest thing with Johnny Depp though that makes me kind of happy is maybe it's just because he's learned from all this, is because he like copes with like because you could definitely tell he has anxiety and everything too. But
he's admirable for actually getting. And one thing that I also want to make clear is I'm not supporting Amber Heard in the context of she should have won the case.
No, I'm not saying that whatsoever. No, I get where you come from.
I think that Johnny Depp deserved to win that case for sure, 100%. I don't think there's any other way that should have went. I'm glad he won that case, because that is just definitely something that needed to be done. However, I do feel for Amber Heard, and I think that she needs help.
I know, I fully agree whatsoever. I 100% agree on that too. My wife has more of a hatred towards Amber Heard, and it's not because of BPT. It's just she doesn't like Amber Heard at all. She just hates it. But it's just because her original crush was freaking Johnny Depp.
Yeah,
exactly. Which I'll pick on her sometimes for it, because I'll tell her my favorite music is Nightmare on Elm Street because he died in that movie. But no, I actually do like Johnny Depp. But I think that case also helped understand that men, have it hard though too. And
actually, speaking of that, I'm sorry.
No,
and you can elaborate on this. This is going to be really quick. And I'm gonna end up raising a lot of red flags here for a lot of women. But please, if it raises red flags, please come to me. I want you on my podcast if you want to talk about this. I definitely want to talk about this. I think that we should get together a podcast where it's like half men, half women, have a discussion about this. But there's controversy saying that men actually have it worse, which is the reason why the mortality rate of men is a lot higher, basically committing suicide a lot more, and etc. I have ideology behind that. I have ideas of why that happens. And again, I'll save that for a different podcast. But there was a woman that was a transgender, and she decided she wanted to see what it's like to be a man I think I'm going to get the number on this wrong. I know I am. But it was somewhere between 6 months to 3 years, something like that. In the end, she ended up committing suicide because she couldn't believe how poorly men are treated in society. And it's not necessarily, I don't know how to elaborate on that, but I could definitely do it in a future podcast. But like, basically, men are just are treated like, because, I know what I was going to say. Because women, it's not even women, it's just society in general thinks that men, they put them on a pedestal, and that nothing wrong could happen to them because they control everything. But that's also a caveat, because they are a lot of times expected to be that role, fulfill that role, from all kinds of different people, not just like, and you can make the argument all you want, but they're the ones making those decisions and stuff. It's like, we can debate that. I have a debate for that. Anyways, go ahead and continue.
So actually, I'm glad that you brought that up though too, because I think so that kind of goes back to how like my biological dad was, because the way he was raised was you have to be a man, you can't share your feelings or anything like that.
You got to be the breadwinner. You can't share your feelings. You got to suppress it. Right. You can't. And that's what ends up bottling it up and turning it into anger and rage.
Right. And I'm happy that I didn't get to live with him, because I think the biggest thing that my mom really helped me understand is that it's okay to have like a feminine feeling, for like a man to have a feminine feeling, because of the fact that it's okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like it's okay to feel like weakness, to be like, okay, like I'll admit, like there are times where I care too much, like I overthink and everything too, but like I'm okay with it at the same time, because of the fact that like that's, even though it's my weakness, like everyone has weaknesses and stuff. I know I have my strengths, but I think with mental health awareness, not a lot of people realize that it's okay to have those feelings, even though, it's going to feel abnormal, but at the same time, you're always going to feel that way, and it's okay to share those feelings. Like that's why I'm so glad that my mom made me realize about that stuff too, because like I said, if I would have lived with my biological dad, I would have been a total different person. People would have probably hated me and stuff. And that's another thing too. My grandfather killed himself because of the fact that his not my grandmother, but what the hell is her? I can't remember her name, but his other wife like cheated on him and was like, "Oh, I'm done with you," and he would like stalk her. I'm not sure. I didn't really get to see my grandpa a bunch of times. But one thing I did remember is that he used to like he loved computers, and I think that's what kind of gave me love for having a PC of my own. But I didn't really do what he did. Like he liked flight simulators. He loved playing Doom, which I love to death too. So he didn't really talk about like. He didn't open up as much because he was more like down doing his own thing and stuff too. But like that's how my biological dad became. But I think what really nailed the coffin was like, I don't know if he was stalking or anything, but like he had an obsession with her. And the fact is that like he realized that he couldn't have her back. I think that he was in a state of depression to where he's like, well, I'm going to kill myself because there's nothing to live for. And that's the thing that I'm worried about with like,
and that's why you got to talk to a psychologist and psychiatrist to figure out if that is something to be worried about. I mean, I could say all day, don't worry about that. Get your mind off of it. Don't think about it. But like, with the typical Andrew Tate stuff, but, but that just doesn't work for some people. Some people it does, not everybody. It just doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah, that's kind of, I'm not worried about myself doing it whatsoever. Cause like I said, after that one state of depression, I was like, I'm never going to kill myself ever again. And I've never felt that way, which I'm happy for. Good. So I'm happy about that. I think the only thing I am worried about, so I did my name change.
Do you mind if I ask how long ago that was?
Oh, the name change?
No, the when you contemplated suicide.
Oh shit. That was when I was 12, 13. So I was
wow.
Yeah, I was either like in middle school.
Really young.
Yeah, about middle school, close to high school. Like so your
sister was like what, 22, 23?
No. She was younger than me.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I take that back. I was like 14, 15 because she was like 4 or 5 years old because she was she was in school for a little bit. So,
that would have been traumatic.
Yeah. And that's why like that opened my eyes up like, holy shit, I'm doing something fucking stupid. And, but that's why I'm glad I didn't do that. Now, I will say this, having my name changed, there's a story behind that too, because I was thinking about doing it. So like I finally got my name changed. That was like last year around, I want to say it was, or no, I take that back. No, it wasn't last year. It was this year. It was around like March-ish.
Okay.
Around there. Yeah. Like the beginning of March, end of February. So I talked to my biological dad, and so he was at work. I called him. I was like, because I originally didn't want to talk to him about it because of the fact that I don't have hatred for him. I love them. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I was more of like, I just want to get this done because I just have no connection with them. And the biggest thing was Morgan did make a good point. She's like, honestly, I think you should talk to him about it because of the fact that it would give you closure. I was like, all right, I should. And I was like, I don't want to, but I have to, and I get it. So I called him. He was at work. I was like, oh, I'll just call me back whenever you're done with work, or I'll call you back when you're done with work. He calls me. He's almost done with work. He's like, hey, what's up? I was like, well, you're not going to like this, but I'm going to have my last name changed. And he's like, what do you mean? and I said, I was like, I want to have a name change. She's like, why? I just feel like there's no connection between us because every time we talk, like you're either playing a game or you're not deep in the conversation. Like when we're talking. Like when my mom and I talk, like we get deep into conversation, like we'll talk about a lot of things and stuff, and it just keeps going. She doesn't have any paused moment of like dull or like, oh, I given up on talking to you. Like him, on the other hand. So like, for example, my wife would tell you this straight up. We went to Applebee's the last time. So he lives in North Carolina. Before he moved to North Carolina, he took us to Applebee's, which was nice of him. Don't get me wrong. However, it was the most weirdest, like awkward he rarely even talked. He was watching either a baseball game or a football game. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, and then he would always ask about sports, and then he would just move on to what, like, more pretty much having the conversation. It was the most awkward moment. Yeah. And so back to talking to him over the phone, like he's like, hey, I got to hang up because I need to like absorb all this. I think that's what made it hard for me because I was expecting him to be like, oh, well, fuck you, and hung up.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, shit, I'm kind of feeling like I didn't have any regret, but I'm just like, fuck, I feel bad because the fact that like, it seems like he is actually showing that he kind of cares. I'm like, fuck, man. I'm like, I wish it was easier for him to say fuck off.
Yeah.
And just,
so go ahead. No. Go ahead.
Oh, so then he calls me back. And then he asked me, he's like, well, why? He's like, why would you change your last name? Like, it's just a name. It's not going to make you do anything. And he's like, what's the point of having your name changed? I was like, to wake someone up. That's what I said. I was like, to wake someone up because the fact that like, because our past was not the greatest. He's like, what do you mean by that?
I got a question then. Would he typically get mad and angry at those times? Because you said something about you expected him to get angry and hang up the phone and just disappear, basically.
Yeah, so with him, there was one moment there was a few moments I do remember. One of the biggest moments I remember that I don't know if the only thing is with me is that I'm not sure if it's like specifically trauma because like it doesn't affect my life, but I do remember one time where, you know, I was maybe 5-6 years old and I was grumpy for some reason. I can't remember that part. So my uncle said something to try to cheer me up. And for some reason I was like, oh, like, you know, because you're a kid. You don't know any fucking better.
Yeah.
Well, then that was when my biological dad, like he got so upset because of the fact that I was throwing a tantrum. He literally threw me at the wall, held me by the neck, and I'm just like, what the fuck is this? I was
How
like,
old were you?
I was like 5 or 6, maybe 7.
Christ.
Yeah. And the problem is, like, I know for the fact he has anger management because of the fact that, for sure. Because every little thing he would snap for no fucking reason. And I don't know. I'm just glad that I'm not like that, though, because if I would have lived with him, I know I would have got his traits. Because living with my mom, like, there are things that she'll say that she's regretted and everything, too. Because there was one time when I was a little kid, she said she was being sarcastic, but she did apologize, which I thought was funny. It's funny now to me, but and I don't mean to trigger people with this, but there was a time where she was like, "Are you fucking retarded?" and I'm like, and at first, like as a kid, I can't remember how old I was, but like I cried because I was like, "Well, that kind of hurt me." And then she's like, "What the fuck are you crying for? You're not. Are you retarded?" I just didn't laugh because I know a lot of people gets triggered by that word.
Yeah. But I mean, that's what she said. Yeah, I mean, you can't really.
And it made me laugh because I'm just like, because I know where she's what she's trying to say. She's like, "Are you stupid?"
Yeah.
But like, she did apologize because she worked. Because like, I think the nice thing is that she finally understands, like, you know, mental health awareness and everything, because she's a social worker. So I'm very proud of her because the fact that she's helping people and stuff too. She works at 180, so she's I can't remember what position she's at. I know she's like a manager, which is awesome.
Okay.
But at the same time, like, I'm very proud of her. But like going back to that, it made me laugh because like I thought it was funny, and then like there were some stupid things that like I would say that I cried about, and I shouldn't say that was not stupid to cry about because like it hurt my feelings because, you know, words can hurt. But looking at it back now, I'm like, oh, that's kind of fucking funny though, just because that's pretty fucking funny, and because I have a sense of dark humor and stuff too. But at the same time, what really hurt me the most was the fact that the fact that I thought that he was going to be like, oh, well, you know what? Then fuck you. I'm done with you, whatever. Yeah, right. And it got to the point where like he was crying a little bit. It made me cry because I'm like, shit, like he's not making it easy for me. But here's the thing. At the same time, when I'm on the phone, that's what he's trying to do. He's kind of trying to manipulate, because I get his pattern of what he does of growing up. Because now the crying part, he's not manipulating because he's hurt. I get that part. But the manipulating part is where he's just like, oh, do you remember the times of this? Like, your mother fucked us over. That's the problem. Your mom did this. Your mom did that. And then I tell him, I'm like, dude, you keep bringing that up thinking it's all of mom's fault, but it's not. You need to realize, like, you need to take the responsibility of what you did as well. You need to take the...
That's what you told him?
Yeah, I was like,
and when was that?
This was around this was around February, like mid-February, early February, before I did the name change.
Oh, so, this was recent.
Yes, this was still recent. This was this year, yeah. So he was explaining to me, he's like, well, you know, that's why I'm mad. I should have gotten like your child, like, because my mom was telling me a lot of things because I thought that he was trying to win custody of me at one point. He didn't. The only thing he was trying to do is that he was trying to prevent from having to pay something else.
Child support. Yeah,
child support. Yeah. So they waived that part off, but he still had to pay child support. So I did confront that to him. He's like, what the hell are you talking about? I was like, she's got the paperwork, Dad.
Wow.
I was like, she's got the paperwork. She showed me proof of it. She showed me proof of everything. He's like, well, I got proof of all this stuff. I'm like, then send it to me. He's like, well, I can't because I live in North Carolina. I'm like, you can send fucking pictures or something.
Yeah. So oh, I'm sorry. Continue.
No, you're fine. So the main thing was, I'll fast forward a little bit, because even my uncle from my dad's side of the family was like, hey, you're going to regret it. And like, he was being like nice about it. Once I did the name change, or there was a point where, his last call was what really hurt me, because I was so pissed off of what he said, because like I thought he turned a leaf, was like, hey, because at one point he messaged me, he's like, all right, if you do the name change, yeah, it's gonna hurt, but you're still my son, I care about you. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, and I told him, I was like, I'm thankful that, you know, you're opening up to that. I appreciate it. Thank you. And so I did the name change. He calls me back, and he's like, I never expected you to do that. He's like, I don't want you to say anything. The only thing I'm going to say is I never expect you to do that. And like, he changed another fucking leaf. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And he's like, I never expect you to do that. You know, fuck you. And that's where he started saying, fuck you, you're dead to me. And he hung up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that fucking hurt. I'm like, damn, dude, that sucks. Still love him, but I don't regret what I did, because, like I said, that's when it clicked, and like, you know what? I'm glad I did that, because of the fact that I knew he was going to do something like that. And I knew for the fact that like I know he cared. I'm not saying he didn't love me, but I wish he shown like what mom showed me what love is. Because I knew he grew up differently, because he grew up in that like man, like quote man mentality. But at the same time, like, the fact that my mom, like I called my mom straight up, was like, hey, this is what happened. And then like, I was in tears, but you know, she felt bad. She thought I was going to regret changing my last name, but I didn't whatsoever. Because I'm glad that I have my stepdad's last name. He's proud of me. He's, you know, he knows the fact that I care about him. Like, we don't have a lot in common, but the fact is that, you know, we still have that connection, which is nice. I'm happy about that. But the back to the point where Grandpa killed himself, that's kind of the thing that I'm worried about with Sean, is I feel because him and my stepmom have been on a very bumpy ride, and I'm worried that it's going to happen deja vu is going to happen again, and that's what I'm kind of worried about because before I talked to him about the name change, he did tell me that there was a point where him and my stepmom, he thought that they were going to split and everything, but maybe they worked it out. I'm not sure, but I think that was a thing that I'm a little bit worried about because I don't want. Because like I said, I still love him regardless.
Yeah.
Even if he hates my guts, like I still love him regardless. Even though there are times where I get upset with him, but that's the only main thing I'm worried about. But who knows? I'm not 100% sure. But I'll let you continue. Sorry.
Okay. No, you're good. What I was just gonna say is we could probably wrap this up now, and then we can probably talk more about this on the next one or a following one after that, because it sounds like there's a lot that could still be expressed. You've definitely experienced some trauma. I'm telling you, man.
Yeah.
You definitely have, and I wouldn't. And I mean, I know that you feel like things are good right now, but like, I would still suggest talking to a therapist to understand how to. If you are, I mean, maybe you are. Because I think you're doing a lot of the right things. And I think that there's still a chance for him. And I don't want to put that burden on you,
Mm-hmm.
But so that's why I'd suggest, if you are talking to a therapist, definitely continue. Talk to a psychologist for sure and talk to a psychiatrist if possible, because you do experience anxiety, I'm guessing, a lot. So I would suggest going into that more and figuring that out. But I mean, if you keep doing what you're doing, it sounds like there's a possibility you can change, because even if he's back and forth like that, he showed signs that he would, because he took time to recollect. And I feel like, was that after you said that it's not just her, it's you? Was it after that he said that whole, he needed time to think about it?
No, it's so like when I talked to him, I told him that when he first called me back, that's when I said I don't feel any connection, and that's when he asked why. I was like, well, we don't really hold any conversation or anything. We don't really talk a lot. Like, this was me basically just trying to be like, hey, like, your son. I didn't do it as a threat.
Yeah, no, because I mean, I think what you're saying there, it really opens his head. It really gets in there, and let's put it this way. I think the whole name changing thing, I think that actually gets in there and actually tells him what's what. He knows, it kind of hits him hard, and that's a good thing that it hits him hard. Now, what he needs to do is really think about that and really take that into consideration and figure it out, and not validate his feelings, but validate your feelings. And I think that, ultimately he's the one that needs to see all those things the most. But it could help you, I think, too, to understand him better, to go through all that other stuff that I talked about. But we can end that here, and then we can carry it on to the next time we discuss this stuff.
I'm your host, 0215, and we thank you very much for listening to Anonymousaurus Podcast. Please keep an eye out, as there are podcasts posted regularly. Thank you again, and you have a wonderful day.